Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your Friday Rambling. I'm, of course, your wonderful and standard host, David, aka the Bard. And we're going to go ahead, and, since we are getting closer and closer, it is 6 little days away, folks, to Christmas. We are finally going to say something involving Christmas. Now, the majority of this review is going to be about one specific Christmas movie, what I consider my personal favorite Christmas movie. But before we get into that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a warm up with a few other honorable mentions for great Christmas entertainment. Now, first up we have the Garfield Christmas Special, which is a classic. It is from my childhood, and me being a person in my late 30s, yes folks, it is an older one. Good news is, being an older TV special, you can find it all over the internet with minimal searching. One of the reasons I like this is you do get a lot of the classic Garfield humor, with Garfield being grumpy and loving food and being self-centered. But when push comes to shove, he does embrace the Christmas spirit. There's a wonderful moral at the end about how important family is. And honestly, the scene with the grandma where she's talking about her late husband and how important Christmas was to her husband, and she gets into how hard it is for her on Christmas Eve and Christmas to be without him. I don't care how the animation looks. That story is a tearjerker. I mean, that is gets me right in the feels every year. I know it's coming. I know the basics of the speech, but it grabs me because it's so real. It is exactly the kind of story you hear from your older relatives when you do catch them in those moments of memories and nostalgia. And I give all the credit in the world to the voice actress, because I mean, she got her tone of voice perfect in that scene. It really is. I highly recommend that special for anybody that enjoys Garfield in any iteration. But yes, be warned, there is about a 2-minute point where you're just going to be like, oh, poor grandma. Next up we have, of course, the iconic Charlie Brown Christmas. I mean, we all know the Charlie Brown Christmas. The little tree nobody wanted that ends up becoming beautiful at the end because love and genuine affection is put into it. Charlie clashing with other people's, hey, it's all about fun and materialism approach to Christmas. The great speech by Linus about the true spirit of Christmas and the connections to Jesus. I know we do live in a world where not everybody is Christian and believes Jesus is the Son of God, and that's fine because you can enjoy this special without having to believe in Christianity. Christianity is a big point to the Peanuts world, but you know, that's definitely a full-length episode discussion for another time. It is one of the all-time great holiday classics. If you've never seen it, go track it down. I'm also going to nominate, I almost did a full movie review for it, but you know, it is a close second. I'm going to nominate Bill Murray's Scrooged as the last of my honorable mentions. I mean, wonderful, what for its time period, which was the 80s, modern, updated telling of the Scrooge story. A lot of meta layering to it, where Bill Murray's character is playing Scrooge, but he's also a TV executive putting on a Christmas Eve night live telecast of Scrooge. So it's like it's this world where he's going through the Scrooge story, but he exists in a world where the Scrooge story is, like in the real world, a classic story that he's very familiar with. So there's just some wonderful metafiction layering to it, and Bill Murray is at his best as that snarky, antagonistic person with a heart of gold. It's got a wonderful supporting cast, just brilliant effects that even today, so many years later, still hold up. So definitely go out there and see it. Now, I could go and list a whole bunch of other ones, but as I said, we're going to get the show on the road and discuss the pick, my all-time absolute favorite Christmas movie. Is a Christmas movie from, let me go ahead and get my stats here, folks, so I don't misquote anything. 1984, it is a comedy horror film written by Chris Columbus, directed by Joe Dante, executive produced by Steven Spielberg. That's right, folks. Gremlins. Gremlins. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Now, I'm going to be honest. I know when people think Christmas movies, this is not the first thing that pops in their mind. But let's be honest. If you want to be one of those little Facebook memers that wants to claim Die Hard as a Christmas movie, you cannot deny Gremlins, because the entire plot of Gremlins centers around Christmas. Yes, it is a black comedy or dark comedy, if you prefer that term. They are interchangeable and synonymous. Some people also call it gallows humor, but as a genre, the term gallows humor doesn't work as good as dark comedy or black comedy. But the whole thing was basically set up as a satire of the old school 60s and 70s Christmas specials like It's a Wonderful Life. In fact, there's a brief clip of It's a Wonderful Life being played within the Gremlins movie, being watched by the main character's mother while she is in the kitchen cooking. So, yes, this is definitely a Christmas movie. For those people not familiar with it, the basic plot is that a father who is an inventor, a self-employed inventor, and thus often out traveling, looking both for inspiration for new inventions and pitching his inventions to various companies, stops by a Chinatown district in a undisclosed big city, and unofficially, due to the grandkid scheming against the grandfather that runs the shop, obtains a rare creature called a mogwai, which is furry, highly intelligent, cute as all sin. Man, being an inventor, decides to christen the mogwai Gizmo and gives him to his adult son Billy as a Christmas present, although he allows Billy to open it up early because it is a living creature and you don't want to keep those in a wrapped box too long. Bad news is mogwais are mystical creatures and there are certain rules you have to obey. When one of the rules is broken, more mogwai are spawned. However, unlike Gizmo, they are evil, mischievous troublemakers. Subsequently, they then manipulate and conspire to have Billy break a second rule, which allows them to turn into scaly, ugly, sharp-clawed, 3 fingers, critters called gremlins. Now, yes, for those legend buffs, the term gremlins is classically attributed to the British Royal Air Force during World War II, where they would claim that the various quirky, unpredictable, random malfunctions in their aircraft was caused by gremlins, little impish creatures that specialized in sabotaging machinery. This folkloric origin is put into the film when neighbor Murray Futterman, while stumbling home drunk from the local bar in their small town of Kingston Falls, where most of the movie takes place, begins discussing how, as a military veteran himself, he touched on the legendary gremlins before we saw the ones in this film, so it was brilliant foreshadowing, but specifically espouses his views of the evil communists, because again it was the mid-80s, were intentionally introducing gremlins into the machinery that is being produced over there and sold in America, which is why he prefers his made in America technology. It's a thing, it's a socio-political statement that still kind of rings true because we're still doing a lot of international production in today's global economy. But we're going to gloss over that because we are focusing on the main aspects of the movie. And that is that the movie very quickly goes from this, oh, cute little boy and his pet thing, to a flat-out horror movie. Once the gremlins start spawning in numbers, we get the town, which again is a very small town kind of thing where everybody knows everybody, going to hell in a handbasket. People start dying left and right. Buildings are blown up. But the good news is, when it's all said and done, all of the gremlins are eliminated. The day is saved. The main character solidifies his romantic relationship with his co-worker. And the old man tracks Gizmo down, and since it was not an official sale and was done by his irresponsible grandson, who was just trying to help the family make a little money, but didn't fully understand the horrors that he was unleashing, takes Gizmo back with him, promising Billy that one day, when you are ready, Mogwai will be here for you. And yes, Gremlins did have a sequel, Gremlins 2: The New Batch. However, that did not take place at Christmas time, and itself was a satire of unnecessary Hollywood sequels, as Chris Columbus and Joe Dante had no plans when they made the first Gremlins movie to have any sequels. So when they were pressured to do a sequel, they decided, well, fine, we'll do a sequel, but we'll do a sequel that satires Hollywood sequels, because that's how we roll. So, we're going to go ahead and trip through the cast real quick. Main character Billy Peltzer is acted out by Zach Galligan. Love interest Kate is portrayed by Phoebe Cates, which is a wonderful casting choice because in the 80s, when Phoebe Cates was at her peak, she was one of the great examples of the 80s of the girl next door. You hear that term a lot used in marketing and Hollywood hype of, oh, she's got that girl next door kind of beauty. If you don't know what that means, seriously, go watch this movie. Go watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Phoebe Cates just epitomizes it. Yes, she is also the lead in the cult classic Drop Dead Fred. That was a little later in her career. She's still very good looking and cute in that, but you know, she was aging more into a classic beauty feel, not a cute woman in her 20s vibe. Different kinds of artistic beauty, and it is an artistic beauty I'm speaking of, folks. I'm not trying to demean or objectify her. She's also an incredible actress. Even in 2019, I would be interested in any role she would portray because I do enjoy her. She tends to really bring her characters to life. We also have Hoyt Axton as the father. Roulette Productions' old buddy, Judge Reinhold, as Billy and Kate's supervisor, Gerald Hopkins, who himself, in the theatrical cut, has a few good scenes in the beginning of the movie, but tends to disappear. If you buy the special edition DVD like I have, or Blu-ray, or 4K DVD, whichever format you watch movies on, there is a cut scene that was fully filmed that expounds upon his final fate in the movie and gives him more screen time. The aforementioned Murray Futterman is played by longtime classic actor Dick Miller, and he does a wonderful role in it. The character proved so popular that despite him and his wife Sheila being highly implied to have been killed in the movie, they were brought back in Gremlins 2, said to have been just injured and highly traumatized. We can call it a retcon, and yes, folks, we did discuss retcons in a previous episode. I did not mention this particular one as I didn't think of the time, but, you know. It is there, but it does work because Murray is one of the great characters in it. The old man, aka Mr. Wing, is played by Key Luke, a classic Chinese-born American film and television actor who, trivia fact, was one of the founding members of the Screen Actors Guild. Was the proper tense? Hold on, let me pull him up real quick. Yes, Mr. Key Luke was born in 1904, died in 1991, so he is no longer with us. Besides playing Mr. Wing in Gremlins, he also played Lee Chan, the, quote, #1 son in the Charlie Chan films, was the original Kato in the 1939 to 1941 Green Hornet film serials, voiced Brack in the 1960 Space Ghost cartoons, was Master Po in the television series of Kung Fu. So, yes, he acted throughout many decades. A moment for Key Luke. Respect for a great actor. We also have young Corey Feldman playing the teenage buddy of Billy Peltzer, Pete Fontaine. He does not show up in the sequel, though as far as we know, he is one of the survivors of the Kingston Fall disaster. Gizmo is voiced by Howie Mandel, who is, of course, a wonderful actor in person, who did many great things. Stripe, voiced by Frank Welker, one of the all-time iconic voice actors. I mean, dead serious. If you talk to me about top voice actors, I would have to say that your top three would be Mel Blanc, Frank Welker, and Tara Strong. No disrespect to any other voice actors working here in America. I'm only counting American voice actors because those are the ones I'm most familiar with. But those would be my top three. You also have a cameo by Steven Spielberg in it, which is all well and good. It's all fun times. Now, because this movie was filmed in 1984, we are going to talk a real bit about the special effects. And that is that the special effects were done in practical style. Your wide shots of Gizmo and the Gremlins were done by small rubber puppets, some of which were mechanical to show the movement. They were designed by Chris Wallace. Marionettes were also used for the more tied up movement based shots of the Gremlins. I also forgot the majority of the other Gremlins voices were voiced by Michael Winslow, who 80s actors would know as LeVar Jones from the Police Academy films, aka the cop that did all the cool sound effects, because that's the point. The man of 10,000 sound effects being his nickname. Besides being an actor, he was also a prolific beatboxer. And Peter Cullen, who is another wonderful voice actor, most famous for voicing Optimus Prime in the original 80s Transformers animated series, and at least the first few Michael Bay films. I don't know if he continued to voice without all of them. And I know he didn't voice him in all the subsequent Transformers cartoons, but he is the voice most classic fans think of as Optimus Prime. Film score is composed by Jerry Goldsmith, who won a Saturn Award for Best Music for his efforts. But that is the thing about watching Gremlins, especially in 2019 if you've never watched it before. Yes, there will be a few sequences where the Gremlins are not very smooth looking, and their movements are, compared to what you're used to seeing in movies made in the last few years, kind of herky-jerky, but that's because they are classic practical effects. This was before the era of CGI, so no, you're not going to get a lot of this green screen stuff. I have nothing against CGI in of itself, but there is a point where, especially for movies like this, and yes, a lot of it was technology at the time, but frankly, if it was being filmed today, I would still prefer to go this way, where practical effects are a better way to do it because of how much interaction there is between the Gremlins and the human characters. Or these are small, mischievous creatures that like to pounce and crawl all over you and scratch and bite. It just comes off better when the actors aren't having to do this with CGI creatures coming later. When you have something that looks like what it's going to look like on film, it really helps just bring you into the fiction environment. So there you go. As I said, the back half of the Gremlins film is a very dark horror vibe to it. It actually, as the scripts went through the various drafts, got less dark. The original one was much more of a straight horror movie, where you had Gremlins blatantly on screen eating people, whereas in the movie we do see them biting to attack, but there is no explicit stating of devouring of people. Also, Gizmo was originally scripted to become the lead Gremlin Stripe. However, Spielberg overruled that plot element as he felt that Gizmo was a very cute character and the audiences would want to be present at the film. I have to agree on Spielberg having the good Mogwai to help reinforce the fact that, you know, it's not necessarily a hard rule that a given species is good or evil. Other stuff was left in the film, although there was disagreements behind the scenes about it. I'm not going to go into any explicit details because there are various documentaries and interviews about Gremlins that go into it, and I do not want to misquote or misattribute who said what, and therefore put out false information there. last up, as I said, there was a sequel. There's been, over the last few decades, a ton of merchandise, mostly centered around the character of Gizmo. However, probably the greatest legacy to Gremlins, and this is something people overlook because the impact is something that kind of became its own thing. Ooh, excuse me, folks. I had a little sinus problems earlier in the day here as I'm recording. I'm really trying not to intentionally snuffle through this. But this movie, due to the fact that the trailers wanting to downplay the horror elements and the inherent cuteness of Gizmo, and that a lot of the violence is implied or shown at very wide shots, it did not get an R rating, it got a PG rating. And as such, many children went to see the movie only to end up leaving the movie partway through with their parents because it was not the movie they were expecting. It was not a movie that children of that age probably should have been watching. At least not all children. Different people are ready for different things at different ages. The point is, between that and another film that Steven Spielberg was associated with, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and the reactions from various audiences to the different scenes in them, Steven Spielberg himself suggested that the MPAA alter its rating system, which it did within 2 months of Gremlins' release, creating the new PG-13 rating, which honestly is one of the best updates to the MPAA that has been proposed and let alone followed through with, because Gremlins is a wonderful example of a movie that, no, it is not violent and sexual and clearly adult content enough to need a full R rating, but you can't just say it's PG because the violence that is in there can be very jarring, especially the first time you watch it when you're not expecting it. So for movies like this and Temple of Doom, yes, the PG-13 rating was needed. A lot of movies have since been made that have fit perfectly in this demographic. Or not demographic, I guess, but, well, kind of. I really can't think of a better word than demographic. But either way, this rating category, because filmmakers know it exists, and they know, hey, we can go here and we can aim PG-13. So that's the thing. As I said, they got one sequel. There have been, it came out in 1990. There have been many attempts to make further sequels, but a third movie has never quite gotten put together. Apparently, HBO Plus, their streaming service, is getting ready to launch a TV series that's supposed to serve as a prequel to the original movie. I don't have the streaming service. I'm not really familiar with that particular entry in it right as of this minute. Honestly, I just found out about it while double checking my research for this video yesterday, so maybe we'll do a follow-up update to this one day as far as that series goes. Give me 1 second, I'll see if I can pull up the title reference. Yeah. Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai. And excuse me, it's not HBO Plus, it's HBO Max. HBO Max and Disney Plus. HBO Max, Disney Plus, they are different things. Stop blenderizing names. Sorry, sometimes my brain works against me, folks, but this is why I keep reference notes up here on my screen in front of me while I do these videos. So, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you've never seen Gremlins, go out and watch it. If you have seen it, but it's been many years, give it another watch. It is definitely a classic movie, has a huge audience, and yes, it is a Christmas movie. Don't argue with me on that point. There really is no argument about it. It may not be a Christmas movie that leaves you with hard feels about the joy of Christmas, but it is a Christmas movie. So, enjoy your holidays. By the time I come back, it will be after Christmas. I may just do a little post-Christmas, hey, here's how the holiday worked for me vibe. Don't know yet. I'm going to think about it over the next few days. I got to make it to Christmas first. Bad thing with working retail is this last week before ending with Christmas Eve tends to be very hectic. So, hey, if you're one of those kind of people, please say a prayer for me. And whatever condition I am in mentally and emotionally, I will see you next Friday with some post-Christmas fun.